So we'll continue from where we ended last time. We discussed the powers of corporation, specifically express powers of the corporation. So we'll now move to implied powers and incidental powers. So this will be very brief. So we all know the express powers of the corporation, those provided expressly in the corporation code and in the articles of incorporation. Now we'll look at the implied powers. So implied powers are not described, these are not found in the black letter of the law, but nonetheless, they are there, they exist because these powers, they can be inferred or necessary for the exercise of the express powers. So they are inferred, they are derived from the written powers of the corporation. So they enable corporations to effectively carry out their purposes. They are not explicitly stated in the law, but they are reasonably necessary to achieve the corporation's objectives. Of course, the legal basis of implied powers is still Section 35 because it's in Section 35 the express powers that we derive the implied powers. We infer from the express powers the implied powers of the corporation. So while not explicitly listed, implied powers are those reasonably necessary to carry out the corporation's express powers and purposes. So for example, we don't have this expressly written in the revised corporation code, hiring employees, entering into contracts, borrowing funds. They are not explicitly provided, but we can infer that the corporation can exercise these powers because they are in furtherance of the express powers. So in hiring employees, a corporation, for example, engaged in manufacturing, may hire workers and managers to operate its facilities. So these powers, although not explicitly stated in the articles of incorporation, could be exercised by the corporation. Entering into contracts, of course, a corporation may lease an office space, purchase equipment necessary for its operations. This is again derived from its express powers. Okay, although this is not specifically provided, it is an implied power. Okay, borrowing of funds, another implied power. Okay, although there is Section 37 providing the rule on how corporation will increase or could secure its bonded indebtedness, not all forms of borrowing are included in Section 37. So a corporation may secure a loan to finance its projects, and such exercise of implied power must be in consonance also with those expressly provided in Section 37, governing bonded indebtedness. So yung concept kasi ng Section 37 has something to do with bonded indebtedness. So yung concept ng corporate bonds. So pagdating sa other forms of still, we need to comply with Section 37, meaning board approval and approval of the stockholders or members. So that's implied power, power that is not expressly written but could be derived from the express powers. And then you have incidental powers. Incidental powers are those incidental to the existence of the corporation. These powers may include those enumerated in Section 35, such as acquire and dispose corporate property, enter into contracts, and perform acts essential to their lawful business. So, incidental powers could be express powers, and the nature of incidental powers, the essence of incidental powers, that they are necessary for the existence of the corporation. So all those powers, whether it's express or implied, could be incidental for as long as they are necessary for the existence of the corporation, or they are incidental, I should say, to the existence of the corporation. So is it possible, if the question is it possible for an express power to be an incidental power? The answer is yes. Okay, that's possible. For example, the express power to acquire and dispose of corporate property is both an express power under Section 35 as well as an incidental power, because that power is incidental to the existence of the corporation. Now let's talk about ultra vires. Under the doctrine of limited capacity, a corporation can only act within the powers granted by law and its articles of incorporation. Now that limited capacity doctrine should be discussed hand in hand with the ultra vires doctrine. Under the ultra vires doctrine, a corporation, okay, is limited to the powers conferred by law, the articles of incorporation, and those necessary or incidental to its purposes. And under the ultra vires doctrine, all acts done beyond these powers are ultra vires. They are unauthorized, or rather, they are acts beyond the authority of the corporation. An ultra vires act could be voidable or void. Okay? Some legal scholars would say that the status of ultra vires acts is voidable, but jurisprudence provides that an ultra vires act could be void or voidable, okay, as we will see afterwards. Now, what is the legal basis of this ultra vires doctrine? We have Section 44, which explicitly prohibits corporations from exercising powers beyond those conferred by the code or their articles of incorporation, except as necessary or incidental to their lawful purposes. So Section 44, okay, talks about the limited capacity doctrine as well as the ultra vires doctrine. Now, as we said earlier, an ultra vires act could be categorized into two. Okay? An illegal ultra vires act, which is therefore void, and a voidable ultra vires act. So ano ba yung illegal ultra vires act? So these are acts of the corporation which are contrary to law, morals, or public policy. Since these acts are illegal, they cannot be ratified by the corporation. On the other hand, you have the voidable ultra vires acts. These acts are outside the corporation's scope, but they are not inherently illegal. And therefore, they can be ratified by the stockholders. Examples could be shown through the jurisprudence. In University of Mindanao Incorporated versus Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, 2016, Supreme Court held that a corporation may only exercise powers expressly granted by law or its articles of incorporation. Acts outside these powers, such as securing loans for third parties, are ultra vires and void. In Waterfront Philippines Incorporated versus SSS, in here the Supreme Court distinguished between illegal ultra vires acts and voidable ultra vires acts. So the distinction lies with the effect and status of the corporate acts. For illegal ultra vires acts, they are void ab initio. For voidable ultra vires acts, they can be ratified under certain conditions. In Land Bank of the Philippines versus Kakayuran, 2013, Supreme Court reiterated that contracts entered into beyond the powers of a corporation are void and non-binding. Well, in this particular case. Now, let's look at additional examples. Ultra vires acts which are illegal. Okay? A corporation engaging in prohibited activities, such as operating without the necessary government approvals, ultra vires acts which are illegal. So in the case of Philippine Contractors Accreditation Board versus Central Mindanao Construction Multipurpose Cooperative, if the act of the corporation is issuing a resolution requiring cooperatives to convert into corporation, cooperatives converting into corporation, this resolution was declared ultra vires, okay, for lacking presidential approval and violating constitutional protections. So as such, it's an illegal ultra vires act as it has no foundation in law and it is prohibited by law. An example of an ultra vires act that is voidable, okay? A corporation entering into a contract outside its stated purpose but not inherently legal, such as in the case of Waterfront Philippines, a loan contract, okay, which exceeds the charter of the SSS. It was not ratified and therefore voided. Okay? If it were ratified, then it would have been validated. Now, how about if a corporation will suspend, okay, suspension of privileges of members? That's the Corporate Act. In the case of Magallanes Watercraft Association Incorporated, this was questioned. The contesting party raised that that act is ultra vires as it goes beyond the powers conferred to the corporation by law and its articles as well as its internal rules. So Supreme Court said that the suspension of the privileges of the members are lawful and necessary for corporate operations. So lawful and necessary for corporate operations. This means that that act of the corporation is an incidental power of the corporation. So while it's not expressly stated, it could be inferred from the express powers of the corporation. So ultra vires doctrine, by summary, these are, when we say ultra vires act, these are acts beyond the authority of a corporation. An ultra vires act could be void or voidable. A void ultra vires act is that which is contrary to law, public morals, public policy, and public order. They cannot be ratified. A voidable ultra vires act can be ratified by the corporation.